My name is Kim Mabon. I am the 2021 board chair for the Corona Chamber. Today is a great day and we have some great updates for you to share. I apologize, the staff is out at a Western area chamber executive training right now. So Don and I have all the responsibilities on us to share the screens and do everything that they normally help us with. So I apologize if it's a little bumpy today. I will be sharing the agenda today with immediate past chair, Don Williamson. So Don, take it away. You're muted. Don, you're muted.
That's no good. Staff couldn't help me with that. Good morning, everyone. Today's event is sponsored by Lifeline Health Services. Lifeline Health's mobile testing services, administered by the medical professionals of COVID Clinic, provide an efficient way to test outside of permanent testing facilities. And I'll tell you what, I've used that service, and it's just wonderful to get that peace of mind or know where you stand. It's easy to drive through, and a consigliere, I don't know that word, but there's a service ensures a positive experience during these uneasy times. Thank you, Lifeline Health Services. And again, I personally want to thank you as well. Back to you, Kim.
Thank you, Don. I just wanted to also let you guys know we have a lot of people registered today, and though you may not see them here, everyone who is registered will get a copy of this presentation afterwards. So thank you everybody for tuning in this morning. A reminder to please use the chat button to ask questions. Please type it into the chat box and I will verbally ask the questions at the appropriate time. Don?
Thanks, Kim. Those of us who are active in the Corona Chamber of Commerce understand the importance of membership. And these updates are one of the benefits, the many benefits you get for your membership in the Corona Chamber of Commerce. If one of you on this call are not yet a member of this chamber, please contact Robert Yanez, our membership specialist, and he can tell you the benefits and go over how to become a member of the Corona Chamber of Commerce. We service a regional landscape. You're not locked in by any boundaries or territories, and our membership is open to everyone. We have incentives for both joining and referencing people who will join the chamber. Our chamber is growing, and the more it grows, the stronger we become and more influential within the circles that need to pay attention and service the business community. So please look into becoming a member today or referring someone to Robert. Kim.
Thank you very much, Don. At this time, I'd like to introduce our legislative advocate, Jeff Gibson. Jeff keeps a pulse on what's happening in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., allowing us to act timely on projects and initiatives that help make a difference in shaping our community. His knowledge of complex political issues and great relationships ensure that the Corona Chamber has all the tools to be effective on behalf of the business community. Please help me welcome Jeff Gibson to elaborate and bring you up to speed. Jeff?
Good morning, guys. So we are looking at all of the new officers and appointments that we're going to be working with throughout the year. Obviously, with the swearing in of the new administration and the appointment of one, obviously, Kamala Harris to become vice president, and the appointment of Javier Becerra, our current attorney general, to likely be the Secretary of Health and Human Services within the administration, which actually runs about 2/3 of the federal government, so it's an extremely important position to have. We're looking at having a number of new officers. So you may have seen Alex Padilla, the Secretary of State, former state senator from Los Angeles, was appointed to fulfill the next 2 years of Kamala Harris's U.S. Senate seat. A little bit on his background: he started out as an aide to Senator Dianne Feinstein. She's served so long that someone who served as a junior aide in her first term in 1992 is now serving with her in the U.S. Senate. He's from Los Angeles, so this is the first time that our area basically will have a U.S. senator from it, going back at least for basically all the way back to, and you may not remember him, but George Murphy, who served in the late 60s, early and up until 1970 in the legislature. So it's been over 50 years since someone from Los Angeles, and it's been almost 40 years, or it's been 31 years since someone from Southern California at all has served to represent us in the U.S. Senate. So that has caused us a number of different issues when we were negotiating the Bay Bridge, for instance, which was in competition for funding for the 91 for a number of decades. And the two people that you have advocating for you use the Bay Bridge almost every day, and their staff uses the Bay Bridge almost every day. You can see how that hurts us. Jeff Miller, if he's on the call, could definitely verify that there was a lot of misunderstanding between Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer on how important the 91 was, until Dianne Feinstein herself was caught in morning commute on the 91 as she came to a Corona Chamber event years ago. So those are very, very important things. So Alex Padilla was the Secretary of State, which is in charge of running the elections, if you own a business, you file all of your paperwork with the Secretary of State. He ran that agency for about 6 years and will now be serving the next 2 years before he has to run for re-election to serve out the rest of the term. So then replacing him at Secretary of State is Shirley Weber, who previously had served in the legislature from San Bernardino, and she is the first African American woman to serve in a statewide seat like the Secretary of State. She came to the legislature from a background with labor unions, and so they'll definitely be having a voice on how business files all their paperwork and elections are run, and so we're going to be monitoring that very well. She's well thought of in the legislature, obviously moved through the appointment process very quickly. So presuming that Javier Becerra is sworn in as the next Secretary of Health and Human Services back in Washington, D.C., that will open up a position for Attorney General. The Attorney General there are several candidates that have announced and some that have kind of dropped out as well. But most of those are clustered in the Sacramento, Northern California area. Javier Becerra was a long-term member of Congress in Los Angeles. So it was nice to have someone in that position. And one of the things that you need to understand, and when you go on our trips, you get to see, is that while it doesn't seem that regionality basically plays a big role, it plays a very big role. When you're talking about water, when you're talking about transportation dollars, when you're talking about infrastructure dollars, and you realize that Northern California has about 30% of the population, Southern California has about 70% of the population, and that Northern California gets about 70% of the tax dollars that get sent to Sacramento for Sacramento or Washington, D.C. for infrastructure, for housing, for all of these items. And then you look and see that, well, about 70% of the constitutional officers, 70% of the legislators in key positions are clustered from the San Francisco Bay Area and other environs. And then you can see that regionality plays as much of a role as anything else that we would have. So there'll be a vacancy. We're assuming there's going to be a vacancy at Attorney General, in which part it's very likely to go to a member of the legislature. One of the leading candidates is Martha Escutia, who is from Los Angeles, so it's possible. She is a former state senator, famous for working to outlaw sugary drinks in the state of California. So take that for what it is, and all of the things that we have to deal with in the state. So those are so Attorney General will likely be announced by the end of this month, presuming that the appointment process this week in Washington are all of the major appointment hearings. So the Secretary of Treasury has been appointed, Janet Yellen. You may have seen her in the news last week. She was asserting herself in the situation with the short squeezes on Wall Street and in the metals markets. And so she's at the Treasury. She previously, in the Obama administration, had been the appointed Fed chair. So that's where you may have heard of her. But tomorrow, for instance, there's going to be a appointment hearing for Secretary of Treasury, which is Mayor Pete Buttigieg from Indiana. While a number of those appointments, there was a large expectation that at least one, if not more than one, were going to come from California. Currently, there's really only the one appointment of the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So to the infrastructure, for the infrastructure posts in the cabinet for the new administration, California once again came up snake eyes on that. So we're going to be trying to continue to work with whoever comes in, because independent of who we supported in the election, they're there. Independent of whoever we supported, your tax dollars are being spent somewhere, and we want them to be spent on things that matter to us, like the 91 freeway, the 15 freeway, adding the infrastructure to the Prado Dam, repainting the Prado Dam, everything big and small that needs to be done. So that basically takes care of the appointment process. Tomorrow, one of the things that we've been very active in, the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee is having a COVID-19 hearing on specifically where workers fit into the vaccination process. Currently, workers are in the first tier, but they're at the bottom of the first tier. Each tier, there's a 1A, 1B, 1C. I don't want to take up too much of your business time trying to explain what likely will be changing anyway. But the key point of this is for essential workers in the logistics and transportation businesses, who you would think would be extremely high on the list because they are the ones that are handling all of the goods that we are receiving. They're actually at the lowest end of tier 1. And so the people that are dropping things off with our frontline workers will be getting their vaccinations last, even though the vaccinations are being given to the frontline workers. So there's an argument that we've engaged in that if we're going to really be serious about vaccinating people, and this is a serious challenge. The state of California has only completed about 40% of the vaccinations that we were supposed to have completed by this point. This morning, the federal administration and Governor Newsom announced an effort to increase the numbers of community vaccinations, but those will be reaching Los Angeles and Oakland. And so we're trying to have it make sense to where that type of activity is at least available so that people like you guys can have at least make the decision to be involved in it, whether you decide to vaccinate or not. We want to have you be able to do those things. So currently, again, the hearing is on moving up logistics and other workers involved in logistics. So truck drivers, concrete companies, anybody that would be considered essential, but is not a frontline worker, basically works in logistics. And getting those people higher on the priority list for vaccinations is something that we're working on very closely, because California is rating each county by the number of people that are vaccinated on the determination of whether or not businesses can reopen. And obviously that's a key piece of the puzzle. Another thing that we're monitoring are the CDC recommendations. I don't know if you've seen this, but the CDC has, as a result of long-term study, is now recommending or allowing hydroxychloroquine in treatments. So that opens up the door for a number, not just hydroxychloroquine, but a number of related treatment processes to be officially prescribed. So it's unfortunate that took 10 months to happen, but it's here now. And so we're just going to be moving forward on that. Any questions so far? I've stunned everyone into silence.
Yeah, no questions so far.
Okay. All right. So then moving on to the state legislature and where they are in the process. The state legislature, this is February. So the state legislature is in the midst of turning in their legislation. So there's been a number of housing related bills because, as we've discussed, the city of Corona is going to have to, city of Corona and all of its sister cities is going to have to update a part of their operating plan. So the operating plan for a city is called the general plan. Within the general plan, there is an element of that plan called the housing element, in which the city of Corona and the state of California and a regional government known as the Southern California Association of Governments basically stack hands and say, this is what Corona is committing to develop over the next 8 years. Corona is by the administrative order, legislation, and then the Southern California Association of Governments has assigned Corona to account for 6,100 new, or thereabouts, 6,100 new units of affordable housing. Now, generally, that would mean that an additional 24,000 or so units would have to be developed to complete that 6,100 units. One of the things that we're monitoring very, very closely is that we as a chamber, and this is in law, this is in state code, this is enforced, it's called a local mandate. A number of the things that the city does that don't seem to make sense have been enforced on the city by the state. Independent of who's running the state, state of California going back 50 years, increasingly has used what are known as local mandates. When the state decides we want to see some sort of policy done, but we don't have the money or the manpower to do it, they structure the policy in a way that mandates local agencies to do it. And so a lot of what happens in front of a city council, when you go to a city council and you see people there to complain or say, it's your legal requirement, almost all of those items have been enforced on the city by the state legislature. And they have to do it. Every city does it, whether it's Mission Viejo, Mission Valley, San Diego, Los Angeles, Kern, wherever. It's just a requirement. And so the city of Corona has been assigned 6,100 affordable units. On top of that, there's about 24,000 that have to be developed generally to get those 6,100 units completed within the next 8 years. That does not mean that they're going to be, but they have to sincerely make efforts to do that. One of the main thing that we are going to be doing is lobbying the state, the regional agencies, and everybody involved in this to tie the development or the planning of the development of those units to the required transportation, water, and other infrastructure that would normally be required if you were going to be developing a housing unit. For instance, when Bedford, down in South Corona, which is in the midst of being developed, was built or was approved, they had a condition that they would completely redevelop the Cohauco interchange, totally new interchange, before they opened a single home. And actually it came out to about 150 homes were allowed before the infrastructure was in place. Infrastructure is in place. Bridge looks great. It's a great, huge victory for Corona. We've been acknowledged as being the first community in the state of California to do that. It's a model project. The state legislature gave kudos to everyone in the city and to the builder on doing that. And so we know that works. But if you're going to be building projects that have a net effect on Corona of basically 10 times or more the impact of a project the size of Bedford, then you need to have the other projects that we know there's a backlog on. All you need to do is look at the 91 this morning and see that there's obviously a backlog of cars because we went 35 years without doing anything on the 91 project. That as soon as those projects get underway, then we will start to make, as a community, the decisions on where housing goes. So the advantage of following the strategy of linking transportation, water, and other infrastructure funding to go with housing development only makes sense because those are all the negative impacts that come with new residences. If we had the infrastructure for 24,000 new houses, you wouldn't really even notice, other than you would have more stores, you would have less traffic. So walking through that, just realistically as an adult, you realize that. And that's really what we're going to be holding people accountable for and working towards. It's not that we necessarily are in favor of there being a massive amount of housing, or the city necessarily is in favor of a massive amount of housing. More housing could very well be good, but we want a balanced approach. And that's what we're really trying to achieve here. And so any questions as that rolls on?
Yes, we have one question.
Yes.
With all going on in Sacramento, where do you feel we as business owners can engage and embrace the need to reopen our county and state?
Well, the first one is going to be on the national hearing tomorrow, and we have already engaged with the National League of Cities chair, Joe Buscagliano, who happens to be a city councilman in Los Angeles. We've already engaged on letting them know that logistics and other essential workers need to be vaccinated or have the option of being vaccinated as soon as physically possible. We know that in New York and California especially, that a large number of vaccinations are not occurring, and the vaccines are either going bad or they have to go back into long-term cold storage. But we have trucking companies, we have UPS, we have these, everyone's relying on goods movement. I mean, that's just the nature of what goods movement is you can't buy an apple that hasn't been moved unless you walk out into your backyard. But and so knowing that the policy is going to be implemented based on the trend line for things like how are vaccinations going within your county, that's really where the policy has to come in. But you need to continue to speak to your legislators, saying, the need to move this along. And that's something that we're working on very hard. So first thing to do is to stay on this call. The second thing to do is to consistently speak to your legislators and let them know the price that's being paid relative to the protection. So.
Okay, there are no other questions on the queue.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeff. We really do appreciate you bringing this information to us each and every week. Thank you. Don?
Once again, we'd like to thank our sponsor for today, Lifeline Health Services. You can learn more about them and their Norco testing locations at wearelifelinehealth.com. wearelifelinehealth.com. And again, they were great to me and people I know here in the community. And again, thank them for sponsoring us today. Kim?
Thank you, Don. If you would like to sponsor a future business briefing, contact Bobby at the Chamber of Commerce. Register now to join us next Wednesday for more advocacy news. We thank everyone for attending. Today's meeting is adjourned.